To discuss all of this further, we can now bring in Dr. H.A. Hellyer, Senior Fellow at the Royal United Services Institute for Defense and Security Studies. Thank you so much for joining us today. Now, as we've been discussing, it's been 4 weeks of fighting. President Trump has said that the U.S. has all but obliterated Iranian military abilities. He's portraying Iran as a defanged adversary. The Israeli military is saying that it's rendered roughly 70% of Iran's hundreds of missile launchers inoperable, and yet Iran continues to carry out devastating attacks, launching 20 to 30 missiles a day. So how do we square what's happening on the ground with what's been said by the officials?
Thank you very much for having me. So I think that this simply reinforces that we've been told many times different things by the American administration over the past month that have to be not taken, unfortunately, at face value. We've heard that the regime has actually changed. Donald Trump said that a few days ago. Of course, it hasn't changed. The military capacity has been severely degraded. That's true. But I don't think that you can argue that it has been all but annihilated, because otherwise, indeed, the Iranians would not be able to carry out the attacks that they have done so over the last few days. So I don't think that we can take at face value at all what the administration is saying. I think this is all part of really two phenomena. One, that unfortunately we get a lot of, how should we say, alternative facts, as the Americans say, when it comes to this administration. But then also, this is, quote unquote, a part of the fog of war, an intentional fog. And of course, the Iranians do this tremendously as well. Okay, but you did ask me about the Americans, so I want to be clear about that.
Okay, and Dr. Hellyer, I want to bring up another figure that the U.S. military has been touting. They're saying that the number of attacks that Iran has launched since the beginning of the war has declined by roughly 90%. But that's not the same thing as saying those strikes have eliminated 90% of Iranian drones and missiles, is it? So at this point, does Washington really have a good idea of how many missiles and drones Iran has left?
So unfortunately, you'd have to ask them that question, because again, we're going off of what the administration has said themselves. I personally think that the intelligence capacity of the United States should be able to provide them with accurate information when it comes to this. Whether or not they actually release that as such is a different question entirely. Now, again, of course, Iran's military capacity has been degraded and reduced, but we also know that they can rebuild and that they can restock. So the question is, how much has it been degraded, and how permanent is that degradation going to be, and what sort of impact and damage on not simply this particular conflict vis-a-vis the U.S. and the Israelis, but also in terms of international prices for energy, access to oil, and so on. I think that those are the major questions here.
And sorry to go back to this idea of missiles, but one other thing. See, now 4 weeks in, we do have some data that we can look at. While Iran's launching rate is down, there are reports that are saying that its accuracy rate has increased. And I was wondering, do you think that might be attributable in some part to intelligence sharing with Russia? Because we've seen reports, the Ukrainians have said this as well, that they're sharing data of location of U.S. assets in the region.
I think that's speculative, and I would point out, despite being someone who's on the record as being very supportive of Ukraine's war of liberation vis-a-vis the Russians, I do think that we have to point out that the Ukrainians have a vested interest in painting the Russians in a particular way. It would not surprise me in the slightest if the Russians were assisting Iran in targeting. But I don't think that we can take that claim without it being much more verified. I will say also that, as in any war of this nature, the longer it goes on, the more lessons both sides learn about their own capacity and the capacity of the adversary. So the aiming might well have improved, but frankly, to put it very bluntly, that might have just been through practice because they've been throwing so many.
Dr. Hellyer, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today and share your analysis. That's Dr. H.A.
My
Hellyer,
pleasure.
Senior Fellow at the Royal United Services Institute for Defense and Security Studies.